I'm Here So Wizard podcast, sitting down with Julian Bailey to talk his career and, of course, his newest show, Three Pines. How you doing, Julian?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on. This should be fun.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Before we get up to the current date, I always like to go all the way back to the beginning and ask people who work in the creative arts, like, when did you know you wanted to work in them, and what was that kind of first step from passion to professional?
Well, I was born into a musical family. So my mom was a piano teacher. I was raised like learning the piano and kind of groomed to be a musician. But her approach was much more of like a classical approach. And I guess that didn't really suit me. I wanted something a little more free form. So before I had a chance to learn like the Suzuki method or something like that, uh, I had met a friend who I went to school, or a person I went to school with. Wasn't really a friend at that point, and he was on a Canadian TV show, and I was kind of a little starstruck by him, and I thought to myself, "Man, I could do that," you know. And so I asked my parents if I could join this children's theater group, so they obliged, and gradually I kind of phased out the piano. Regrettably, I sort of regret that, but yeah. So I started going to this children's theater group, and then I was referred to a dubbing house in town that was dubbing an anime cartoon into English from Japanese. And I ended up booking one of those roles. And then after that, stuff just started kind of rolling in, at least as far as voiceovers went. And then that was kind of how I got started. At some point in that whole journey, I was discovered at my school by a film crew that was casting for a CBC uh, short, not really a short, but kind of a short-ish feature. And I ended up getting cast in that, and then I did a play with the National Theatre School of Canada. So all these things kind of converged at once, and I was only like 11 years old, I guess, when it all started. So yeah.
So there was really no other. It's not like you were on your way to be an architect and all this stuff hit.
Yeah, no, no. Some people have a story like that, and I think that's pretty cool when it happens like that. But no, for me, it was pretty early on, man. I've more or less been in the business since I was prepubescent. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
been a
pretty
while.
awesome. Are
Yeah,
you
man.
from? Is it Toronto where you're filming Three Pines? Or are you
Yeah,
from?
I was gonna say I should have mentioned that. I was born in Montreal, which is funnily
Okay.
enough where we shot Three Pines. When I was right, pretty much right after I turned 18, I moved to LA, and I went to acting school there for a couple of years, and then graduated. Then moved to Chicago, and that's where I started my career in the U.S. Was in Chicago. I was doing a lot of theater and stuff like that, and I ended up getting really close to a role that was going to go to Broadway for um, for the Steppenwolf Theater with the Steppenwolf Theater, and then that ended up falling through. So I was like, "That's it. I'm going back to LA." Went back to LA and then stayed there for like the next, I don't know, 12 years or so. Then I went to Vancouver for a year, came back to California for a year. Then I came to Montreal, and I ended up booking Three Pines. So things kind of had a way of working out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It just seems like when people talk show business in Canada, it's always Toronto.
Totally. No, I know, and I like Toronto. I've actually worked there. I was working on a video game called Far Cry 5 in 2017, and we were there for like the majority of, well, I'm gonna say the majority of 2017, but we were there, or I was there like a lot in 2017 shooting Far Cry 5, the video game. But no, Montreal's a different city. I mean, it's a little smaller, not that much smaller, and it used to be like the leading city in Canada, but now Toronto kind of took it over, took that spot over. But yeah, Montreal is where I was born and raised until I was 18 years old. So it was kind of, I don't know, poetic for me to come back. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool that the career kind of went full circle already. I mean, you're still young and working, but it's like a full circle already that you got to go back.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It's kind of funny how that worked out, but yeah. Yeah. I felt
Yeah, for
very
sure.
blessed, very fortunate.
That is cool. Would you have a preference if it's a stage or screen, or do you just kind of like doing it all?
I mean, it's they're apples and oranges, theater and film. I I did do a play after getting back here that was a really cool play, and I really wanted to do this play because it was a classic. It was The Glass Menagerie, which is Tennessee Williams' classic play. And yeah, no, I love both. I really, really love both, but they're just totally different mediums. So it's difficult to compare. But I mean, I guess, yeah, I love live, theater, but I just have a deep love for film and TV now is a lot better. I was gonna say improved than it from where it's been in the way back. I think TV's always been what it's been, but now it's a lot more filmic, and
Mhm.
we can just do more with these long form stories and things. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's the golden age of TV right now,
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
especially with the streamers, because you get it's not an 8 hour series; it's an 8 hour movie with eight cliffhangers in between.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's right. That's
Yeah,
exactly right.
cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple times voiceover work, first with the cartoon and then in video games. And I saw on your IMDb you did like a handful of video games. How different is that than like being in front of a camera?
I mean, with video games, if you're doing voiceover, you're just in a booth, which has been the majority, I guess, of the video game projects I've worked on has been in a booth. But I have done some motion capture, like I mentioned, Far Cry 5. That was motion capture. I played one of the top, I don't know, 7 to 10 cast members. I guess I was in that top kind of mix of the cast.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. I played Stacy Pratt, Deputy Stacy Pratt in Far Cry 5, if anybody's familiar. Um, but you know, with motion capture, you're just I mean, it's all imagination because you have this suit on with these little lights all over you. And the set we shoot in this giant space which we call the volume, and it's just like acoustically set up, for good sound. And yeah, we're just running around in there with nothing but our imagination. And like, if you have a hammer in your hand, let's say like in the finished product, in the shoot, it was like, a stick or whatever, like that just give you kind of like a basic prop to help you, with your own suspension of disbelief. Um, I love doing voiceovers too that don't involve motion capture. I really enjoy just being in the booth, and I've also done a fair amount of dubbing in the past, and since I've been back here in Montreal, I dubbed a Korean series called Vincenzo, and I played the English voice of Vincenzo, and that was for Netflix. That was pretty cool. So I just love all of it, man. I like the fact that you have to make quick decisions with dubbing. For example, you're putting a voice on a live action uh performance. Performance has already been done,
Yeah.
and you're just putting your voice onto it, and I like that challenge. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of differences for sure. I love both. I mean, if I could only do one, I would pick film, I guess, out of everything for a variety of reasons. But yeah, I love it all. I like working.
Yeah, luckily you don't have to pick. You just do it all.
Thankfully, yeah.
With the voiceover thing, like you said, the performance is already there. So do you watch the scene like a handful of times with subtitles or whatever to kind of get what they're going for?
So you're talking about like with dubbing,
Like with
for
the
example?
Korean show, for example.
Right, right. Yeah, so basically what they'll do is they'll show you the scene once or twice. I mean, usually I like to just watch it once because I don't wanna start getting in my head about it. I just wanna, like, see it, get the vibe, and then dive in and do it. And then, yeah, you have at least in Montreal, the way we do it here, is you have the words coming up over the the monitor, or in some cases you're in a bigger space and they have like a proper film screen, and you have the words coming up over top of the picture in English. You hear the Korean say in the case of Vincenzo, and then you just you just match the words to the bar. There's a bar and the words pass by, and then you say the word once it hits the bar. And yeah, that's how we do it. It's kind of a skill, I guess, but I've been doing it for a long time, and I really like it. It's really
It
fun.
seems like you'd have to get the hang of it, yeah, to get the timing right and everything.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and some languages are harder to match, like, sync-wise than others, but Korean's actually surprisingly not that bad. Trying to think what language. I did a series when I was younger that was, Czechoslovakian, and that was definitely challenging. Czechoslovakian series, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And you said you hear the language not when you're recording though, just the initial pass, or you hear it also while you're recording your part?
Yeah, no, that would be something called versioning, where you hear the original language and then you're just there with a microphone and you have a script and you try to sort of speak over the person. That'd be like you're watching a documentary or something, you hear the original language, say it's Italian or something, and then you're kind of over the Italian, so your voice would be louder than the Italian. That'd be called versioning. But in dubbing, you don't you watch the original take as it was shot, and then yeah, and then when you do yours, you don't hear them. You don't hear anything.
Okay.
You just see the picture. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be so distracting.
It would be. Definitely. Yeah.
For the video games, like Far Cry 5, you were a pretty prominent recurring character. So that was probably a lot more like voicing a cartoon or something of that. Oh no, that one you did motion capture, so I guess it wouldn't be
Yeah.
like a cartoon. But have you done one where you're like just kind of a voice? Like, do you just get like a list of kind of non sequitur lines that you just have to say over and over?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, definitely. Like, there was a video game I worked on called For Honor, and that was like that, just like a lot of screaming, a lot of shouting, a lot of, yeah, yelling. Trying to think, like, what else did I work on that was like that? Well, I mean, Rainbow Six Siege is a game I've worked on since the beginning, and, I play HQ. I'm like the anchor voice of the game, I guess you could say.
Oh, that's pretty
Um,
cool.
yeah, yeah, so that's been really cool, and we still record for that, like, that's a game we still, do updates on, or different, versions, or not versions, but, like, iterations, I guess, of the game. Um, some of it I'm not really allowed to talk about,
All right.
but yeah, that's just like a lot of similar lines, like, Op 4 eliminated, you need to locate the biohazard container, stuff like that, and just like different, like Op 4 eliminated. Op 4 has been eliminated. Op 4, what, I can't even think now. I've probably like said those lines like, a
For like
million
20
times, but
variations of the
I
same
can't even think of like
accent
all
so
of
the
them. Yeah.
player doesn't get
Yeah.
bored.
You have been spotted. Enemy on the third deck, stuff like that. But yeah, no, I love that stuff, man. And I love the game too. So it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, those are some like top tier games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And you just kind of got into that based on your overall existing career and just stepped into another thing.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, man, I got back here from about 2015 until about 2019, right before the pandemic. I was back and forth between here and LA quite a lot. Um, but yeah, when I came back, and then my agent at the time said, "Oh, this Ubisoft is looking for a voice for their game." In fact, they were looking for a couple voices. One of the characters, like I don't remember which character it was, and then the other one was this more kind of narrator type voice, as they described it. And I was like, okay. So like I put down a couple takes. And the funny thing about Rainbow Six actually is, well, they ended up giving me the role of HQ, which had, a lot to do because he's like throughout the game, and he's been going since the beginning. Um, but, uh, but yeah, no, what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So I remember it from my audition, I had done like a totally different version of HQ of this character. And I nearly sent that one. I might've sent that one as an alternate, but I ended up sending this other one that had nearly gotten erased on my sort of log of takes that I had done, on my phone or something at the time. And I ended up finding this other one. I was like, "Oh, that one's kinda cool. I think I'll go with that one." I sort of went out on a limb and led with that take, and that was the one they loved. So, who
Nice.
knows if I would have gotten it if I hadn't kinda had that instinct to send that one first, yeah.
Yeah, if you maybe like played it too safe or did what
Yeah,
everyone else did.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
That's awesome.
exactly. Yeah.
I know you've done a bunch of movies and TV and stuff, but I wanted to ask about X-Men because it's such a huge, well-known franchise
Yeah.
and it was already established when you stepped in. Like,
Yeah.
how was it going into like a pool that big?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting, I mean, it's an interesting question because, yeah, obviously everybody knows X-Men, right? And I mean, in my case, uh, when I read for I was like, cool, I got an opportunity to be in this movie. We'll see what it might turn out to be. So just for the name value, you're excited at the outset. And then the funny thing is, look, I'll just say this, man, like, I don't know if you saw Dark Phoenix, but like my part in the film ended up being very, very small. Like I don't minimize the fact that I was in the film, but at the same time, like originally, like I had a little bit more to do.
Mhm.
And I thought that what we had done for my character, which I was like the commander of the shuttle, that we end up getting saved by Nightcrawler, and I guess Jean Grey kind of has a pretty significant hand in that, um, or I get saved by Nightcrawler, I should say, but the ship sort of is saved by Sophie Turner's character. Um, but no, look, it's a monster. You know, it's a huge thing to come and do a thing like that. I I loved it. I loved being on a huge set like that, and hanging out with like Jennifer Lawrence and James McAvoy and all those guys. Like it was really cool. Um, I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little disappointed that my little bit of dialogue didn't make the final cut. Like I think I had a tiny bit, but the cool moment before I get saved was lost. But no, I mean, no small parts, just small actors, right? So um but no, it's really cool, man. I worked on it for like about 2.5 weeks, I think it was, and did a couple, stunts. I was on a wire and that kind of thing, and some effects stuff that was fun. Um, but I think Jen made like $6 million and we worked on it the same amount of time. She made about $6 million. I probably pulled in about 12 grand or something. So, so I mean, it's both like kind of awe inspiring, but also humbling at the same time because you're like, wow, I've been doing this for a long time, and like, you know, my juiciest stuff, didn't really make the cut. But of course, I was in the movie and it was fun. But yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know, man. That was kind of a sort of a long and drawn out answer to a relatively simple question. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'd love to work on more big movies. That'd be really fun. And action stuff is super dope. Like I really enjoyed it.
That's cool. Is that the first time or one of the few times that you got to do like wires and stunts of that level?
Not quite actually. Like on a movie that big, yes, but no, I was on a show, which also shot here actually, which I got cast in very soon after coming up here, and that would have been like probably the very end of 2014, around there, and and that was called Helix. It was a sci-fi show, and actually my character, I had a recurring part. I think I was in like 4 episodes or something, and it was for Sci-Fi Network. And my character ends up, it's a kind of slightly, I don't want to say weird because I don't want to offend anyone, but it was kind of weird, like, uh, zombie-ish kind of theme, if anyone's not familiar with Helix.
It's a
But
biohazard show, right?
yeah, exactly, something along those lines. So my character ends up getting killed in the end. Sorry not to give anything away in case anyone hasn't seen it, but but and these zombie guys are the guys that became the zombie guys. That's a very basic way to explain who they are, but they kind of strung me up by my feet, and so I was sort of surprised that they didn't have a stunt guy doing this stunt, but I was hung upside down by my feet about 10 feet off the ground. I had a secure belt kind of latch thing, and there was one tiny shackle that was holding me up with a wire, and I was literally upside down. Again, my head was probably at least 10 feet off the ground. And then the reason they needed to use me for that shot and couldn't use a double was because they wanted to come in and do it like a really long push in, um, and land on my face and kind of see what the zombies had done to my character's face, which was a little not very nice. I was gonna say
Get some cool makeup work too.
yeah, I was gonna say a little undignified, like what they the way they kind of messed up my character's face there. And yeah, and they like gutted him and everything. It was pretty gnarly. But yeah, I was just concerned that that little shackle wouldn't break and land on my head. That was probably the scariest stunt I've ever done because I was hanging upside down for like 5 minutes. But
Yeah, straight upside down. That's brutal.
yeah, it was crazy. It was a trip. But yeah, I've done a few of those wire things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a little more fun when it's like a like enhanced jumping or something rather than just hanging upside down.
Yeah, jumping or, fighting and rolling around, all that kind of thing. I mean, Tom Cruise is just like crazy. I mean, he's amazing the way he
Yeah,
does his stunts. I mean, he's unbelievable. He's incredible. But yeah.
that is cool. Yeah. So I guess we should probably get to Three Pines. So that sorry if I got the timeline wrong, but we went back to LA at a point and then got to read for it and came back to Montreal.
Yeah, something like that. Basically, 2019, I was in LA for about half the year, and I was kind of not really sure what was going on in my life in general. Really, I was sort of, you know, my girlfriend and I were kind of broken up at the time, and I was just trying to figure that out, and then I was back in LA, funnily enough, to kinda get grounded, which people kinda laugh at when I say that I was in LA to get grounded, but that's how it was for me. That was where my people were. That was kind of where I lived from, I guess, about 18 to 37 for the most part, so it was, like, pretty significant portion of my life. I lived in Los Angeles
Yeah.
and not including a couple years in Chicago. Um, and yeah, I was back there, man, and I was really just kind of seeking direction about what to do next. And I went into the little brown church on Coldwater Canyon. If anyone's familiar with the little brown church in Studio City, well, I guess it would be Sherman Oaks, maybe Studio City, Sherman Oaks, right there, not far from my place. And there was a little prayer request box, and I just put my little request down of like, I need to know this, 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 and I put it in the box, and I was like, there you go, God. And let's see what happens. And within a week, man, I had a new agent and had an offer without even having to audition for a show that was shooting in Canada. So I just was like, okay, I guess this is the sign. So I flew back, shot that show. It was like a guest spot on a show, and then I did another show, and then I think I did one or two other little things, and then the pandemic hit. And so I was kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'm here for as long as this thing lasts, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Yeah, let's see what happens with that. And then, so here we are. And then I ended up a couple years later reading for Three Pines and getting that part. And it's been wild, man. It's been a trip. That show has been super cool to
That's
be a
awesome.
part of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hearing a lot of good feedback on it?
Yeah, a lot of good feedback, man. I think we were number one in 5 countries for like 3 weeks after we came out, including the US, Australia, Ireland, the UK, Canada. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's
that's 5.
excellent. That's really
Yes.
profile.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, wow, I was like, wow, okay, cool. And then our reviews were pretty good. I mean, we got some, not tremendous reviews, but my take on that was those are from people that maybe didn't quite appreciate or get what we were going for, what we were doing. And a lot of times people don't really appreciate adaptations because they're like, the book was better, and that's not how we imagined Peter Morrow. That's not how we imagined,
Right.
Myrna or whatever, But the thing is, it's an adaptation, and it's not a transliteration of the books. It's a creative adaptation. So there's a certain amount of creative license that goes into adapting something for television.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Or film or any. It's not the same medium. It's not going to be the same thing.
exactly. And the other thing too is like, you're taking a 485, let's say, novel, and you're adapting it to like about 115-page screenplay broken up into 2 episodes. Okay, so whatever 115 is divided by 2, so that's
Mm.
57 or something like that page teleplay times 2. And so there's a lot of stuff you have to, leave on the floor, as it were. And that's just what it is, man. So I think the production did an incredible job of including stuff that was, worth including. And yeah, it was I think they did an amazing job. And I think the proof is in the pudding. I think, the response has been outstanding. So we're just really grateful, grateful for the support for sure.
For sure. Yeah. I think it's a super strong show. And it's really cool that a show from Montreal, because Montreal is not known throughout the world for its film. It kind of has its own like insular
Mhm,
TV thing, it feels
mhm.
like.
Yeah,
But it's cool that it got a project that's out there in the world.
that's right. That's right. And I mean, that's in large part thanks to Amazon for getting behind it. Bearing in mind that the production company Left Bank Pictures is a British production company, so it was a kind of Canadian slash British slash American effort, but primarily I would say Canadian and British. Platform wise, of course, Amazon is an American company, and then Sony Pictures is American. But I was gonna say, wait, is Sony American or is it Japanese? Because Sony was like a Japanese country to start with, but I mean, company to start with. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Sony's an
Sony
American
Pictures,
company.
yeah.
Sony Pictures Television. I used to live down the street from Sony in Culver City, but so I should know that. But yeah, no, it's a trip, man. Canadian British production, and yeah, we're just really grateful to have had those sorts of partners. I think to work with to put something out like this, because obviously it takes money to do that, but it also takes some great minds and talent to pull something like this off.
Yeah, it definitely looks like an expensive show. Like you're watching it, it's like the way it's shot is almost like it really. I don't want me to say this sound disparaging because it is a cool story, but it's not like a big action piece where like if you didn't have the best scenery and the best light, like it would still tell the story. But
Right.
it's
Right.
gorgeous to look at, so that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, that's not disparaging at all. Yeah, I appreciate that. It is gorgeous to look at, and that's in part due to the incredible scenery of southern Quebec and the eastern townships, which is the area where we filmed. At least the town stuff. So a lot of stuff was filmed in Montreal, which
Mhm.
is a beautiful city in its own right. You know, it's a really gorgeous city. So yeah, yeah, we're just grateful that the stars aligned, as it were, for this thing to happen, and fingers crossed they'll let us keep going. So, well, we left it all out there on the floor. We can do what we can, and if they want to give us another go for a season two, I'm sure a lot of people would appreciate that. But uh, it was great for what it was, and fingers crossed we can keep banging it out because I think people will be pretty happy with future seasons.
Yeah, for sure. And you got a really meaty role in that one.
Yeah, yeah, I did. Yeah, I was play Peter Morrow. He's kind of a complex uh, artist type, which maybe I am too. but no, he's a cool character to play, man. And of course, it's drawn from the books, and I didn't necessarily have a great foundation in the books. Like for example, Anna Tierney, who plays Clara, my wife in the show, did. She was very familiar with the books before getting cast. I was not, and I was cast quite late in the process, so I didn't have a lot of time to like, get familiarized with the books before we started shooting. And then we did start shooting. I started to read like Still Life, which was the first in the series, and I was like, oh, we've already established this about my character. Oh, I don't know if that matches the guy in the books. Like, oh, and then I was trying to figure out how to incorporate some of that stuff, and it just got to be a little bit complicated, and I started getting my head a bit about it, and so I had to put the books down till we finished shooting, and I just was like, okay, I got a lot to work with the scripts, and we're gonna stick with that, and then yeah, and then we'll just you know, uh, uh, well, I'll say this: I was confident that I had like the drive, the internal sort of machinery, if you will, of the character's soul. Like his emotional kind of mechanics, I think were clear to me, and that was clearly explained to me by the writers and the producers. So I think that's the most important thing. But some like details, like Peter, I think it's Still Life. It says Peter always wears glasses, and Peter's always clean shaven. All this stuff. Well, I had a 5 o'clock shadow and I wasn't wearing glasses, and I was like, maybe I should be wearing glasses, and then, well, maybe I could wear them at book club or when I'm working. But, who knows? Maybe if we keep going, he'll wear glasses in like later seasons or something, when he gets a little bit older. But that was the other thing is they made Peter and Clara about 10 to 15 years younger than they are in the books. So, and they wanted to style like my hair the way it was in the show, which is kind of long and wavy. And, yeah, so it was a really, cool experience, like, getting to sink my teeth into that material. Mhm.
Yeah, the whole family dynamic your character and his siblings all have. It looked like it was probably exhausting work days, but maybe really fun too, because you went from like deep emotional stuff to like fighting each other to like a joke to get out of the scene.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You noticed that. That's true. That's what it was like, man. It was just like it was a lot of dynamic, with the show, but with the character in particular. And I mean, the material and the fact that this guy is coming from this. Uh, again, I don't want to sound judgmental, but sort of messed up family, really. I mean, um, you know, I said to someone in an interview not too long ago, I said, you can run away, from a place, but when internally you haven't been set free, so to speak, wherever you run to, that inner life is going with you. And Peter and his wife, moved to the country. They left the city. They tried to get away from all the trappings of this high society kind of emotionally vacant sort of world that he comes from. But his internal neuroses and issues go with him to the country,
Mhm.
and those are things he's continuously wrestling with. So when we see in episodes 5 and 6, he comes back and he's around his family again. It's a lot of it's a lot of stress. I don't know if you remember the scene where we see Gamache and his wife, and then my wife and I go to join the dinner table, and there's this moment in the doorway where we sort of stop, and it's just like, and I like breathe, and she's like, "It's okay," you know, and I'm like, "Okay, let's go." Like the stress and the pressure of being around his family, this character feels is tremendous, and there's just so much under the surface. So, yeah, it was cool to play someone that you know had that inner life going on, and that had come from such a broken place. But but yeah, yeah, I don't know. I feel for anybody who can relate with that. I mean, maybe we all can to a certain extent,
Yeah.
you know, kind of fighting off or running from or sorting out or dealing with those demons and ones that find a way in through, you know, from childhood. It's just they can be difficult to detect and they can be difficult to
Cope
get
with.
free from, I think,
Yeah.
because they just kind of get interwoven in someone's personality, you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that
For sure. Yeah. It's really cool that you are going that deep on the character.
Yeah, thank you,
You
man.
probably have to. It's probably part of the job, but it's just like to hear the process. It's really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, thank you, thank you. I think it was really, really important. I think he's carrying a lot of weights, you know, in his life. And you know, my wife's first reaction when she came to the premiere with me, and we watched the first episode. I hadn't seen any of it at that point, and she was, you know, after the first scene where we see my character, and she's like, "Man, you're a jerk. You're such a jerk." She's like, "I don't like you. I don't like your character." And I'm like, "Well, you know, maybe, you know, give it some time and, like, you know, understand that people are the way they are for a reason." You know, it's like people aren't just jerks or don't come across as jerks for no reason. For the most part, I would say there's some insecurity there, or there's a reason why they're um they're acting that way. You know, they're not just deciding to be a jerk or to be jealous or whatever. They're hurting, you know, and I think that's really one way to kind of demonstrate or explain how this is a show about real human issues and people with real hearts who that have been bruised or broken, and who are trying to find, you know, find a way out or find a way to a place of peace and a place of wholeness, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. It's like because it's a murder mystery show, but the murder's almost secondary to just like watching the family try to exist. And
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Definitely.
very cool. Well, I know you mentioned at the top that your schedule is always packed and everything, but I appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Dude, absolutely, man. Next time I'm gonna try not to schedule my workout like so close to a thing, but I just had this like little window to get it in, and then so like I'm like, oh, I gotta get on this interview, and so I was a little. I hope I'm not too pink, but
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I'm
but
quite
but
red.
yeah, no, man, I appreciate it, dude. Thanks so much for having me on, and
Yeah, absolutely. Is
yeah,
there anything
maybe
else you wanted to plug, like your social medias or anything?
social media, man. If anybody out there wants to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is I am Julian Bailey, and that's IAM Julian Bailey. Yeah, you hopefully people can spell that JULIANBAILEY. And I started a Twitter, but I haven't really been doing anything on it. But it's the same handle. I am Julian Bailey, so I'd appreciate that. And yeah, man, good luck with your show, and
Yeah,
maybe we'll
thank you.
talk again in the future sometime.
Sounds good. Good luck with everything, and I
All right.
appreciate it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, anytime, brother. Thank you.
Take care.
You too, man.
I'd like to thank Julian one more time for taking time out of his obviously busy schedule to come on and talk to us about his career, how he got into it, acting, voice acting, and of course, Three Pines, which you can watch right now on Amazon Prime. And I suggest you do. This is one I was watching anyway, independent of getting interviews or screeners for it. It's a great show. It's cool to see it filmed in Montreal, kind of where I'm from. Check it out, Amazon Prime. You won't regret it. Please make sure to like and subscribe, hit the bell, do all those things. We got a lot more interviews, new movie coverage, screener coverage, comic coverage, all that stuff coming your way. You're not going to want to miss out. Make sure you listen to So Is Your Podcast every single week, wherever you get your podcasts. SoIsYourPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, videos, merchandise, and more. We love hearing feedback, so drop some in the comments, leave us something on social media. All the accounts can be found after the show and in the show notes. So Wizard Podcast can also be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get multiple monthly bonus shows. And on a more personal note, a good friend and I have an ongoing comedy comic series. It's called Social Studies. It's a kind of slice of life, coming of age story about a group of friends navigating all the ridiculousness of high school. We write it like a sitcom, and we do it in the style of the 90s cartoons that we grew up on and love. And the most accurate way I can sum it up is if we were given the chance to do a Nicktoon, this would be it. So you can find it all at socialstudiescomic.com, on Comixology, and on Global Comics. Thanks.